Hey everyone! Today we're going to be talking about Columbine in the Egress. This is the pullback. This is the Egress that goes down to my basement studio. And I am literally crawling down the stairs into that whole area and then shooting back toward the Columbine that I planted there. It's a semi-shade area. It stays relatively cool, compared to the rest of the yard. We're in Minnesota, so the winters are harsh and this is kind of protected too. Here are the little Columbine. They are tucked into this little corner, really happy. It's kind of an area that is just like the perfect climate and soil arrangement for Columbine. Here are some of the final images that we're going to work through. This is the one that we're going to edit. The rest we're just going to look at. But if you watch my other videos, you'll see the same steps applied to a lot of different flowers. So it's all there, just not in this video. All right, I love sparkles. Don't you just love sparkles? This is the sparkle spray that I sprayed, and these little leaves are so pretty. Very, very simple edit. And this is the really interesting seed pod that they have. And this is the petals that extend behind. They almost look like sepals. All right, so here's the shoot. I just wanted to get my bearings at first, and I always try to shoot with a fairly high shutter speed. At this point, at 2.8, I was able to just use ISO 250, which was great to get me to that high shutter speed. I shoot handheld without a tripod, so it's really important to have a fast shutter speed. Now I'm increasing the aperture and opening up the shutter speed to see if I can get something else with maybe more depth. And I was sort of anticipating that this blossom is just weird looking. It's hard to know how to photograph this and make it look beautiful. It's such a pretty flower, but straight on, it looks a little bit alien-like. I guess it's the nature of, what it is, if you find it attractive or not, but I struggle with it, and those are all the seed pods. And then I went over to this plant, and I thought, well, we'll try this, and I could see that it was covered in mud. We had been watering a lot of things, and I think it just got oversprayed with maybe some mulch or who knows what. But I could see the texture of the petal, and I was like, this is a pretty angle, and you could see that I sort of hung there, and I really liked what it was. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll brighten it up. And my shutter speed is getting dangerously slow here for handheld shooting for me. So I'm increasing the shutter speed and then opening up the aperture and continuing to try and hone in on a composition that feels really good for me. And I think I've got it at this point. All right. Next step is going into the editing portion. Hey everyone, so we're going to talk about columbines. Now columbines are a really unique flower, and I just want to show you why. They have these petals that extend out behind, and I Googled it. I thought that perhaps those were sepals or the top leaves, but they're actually petals, and I think so anyway. Don't quote me. This is a difficult flower, not a very straightforward flower, but it has some unique challenges because of its really weird shape. And the thing that makes it weird makes it wonderful. And so we're just going to kind of talk about the different things that we can photograph when it comes to columbine. The seed pods form after the blossoms fall off, and they have really unique seed pods that are quite photogenic. So we're going to photograph those as well. And as we go through, I was looking at this thinking, how do I show this off to its best, give it its best angle? It just has all these little neat things that are sticking out, but it's hard to simplify the scene and make a beautiful composition when you have so many layers of things happening. The seed pod is in front, and these things are sticking out. There's this teeny tiny little leaf, and they have really beautiful leaves. The lobes of the leaf are all nice and smooth and rounded, really pretty leaves. And so I got some of these in focus, like this one's sharply in focus and the next one's not, because I think it was jumped over to this stem. Just go through there. And there's a bit of a pullback. This is an egress that I was working in, and these particular flowers are starting to fade. They have a little bit of dirt on them, and we were just doing some gardening and things, so I'm sure mud, water got dumped on them. But the seed pods, again, are really fascinating. We're going to focus on this guy later. And then I spritzed it with some sparkle spray. Look at how the lobes of these leaves, how pretty they are. They just look like sparkles dancing across. And there I was focusing on it more. Isn't that pretty? Oh, you can have so much fun. Very delicate, feminine little leaves. And then I thought, oh, how do you tackle this bloom? It has the stamens on the inside and the stamens kind of stalk there. And then you have petals that flay outward, and then you have petals that zoom forward. And so you have to decide, do I want to go deep with my aperture to get all of it, or do I want to be shallow? And if shallow, where do I focus? It seemed most logical to focus right on the little center yellow portion there. But in truth, it's like nothing really looked good. And so this is one that I was kind of working on as far as an edit goes. Not done yet. We'll come back to it here and work on it more. But at this angle, I was able to get this petal side in focus, this in focus, this, and some of this. And that actually felt like a good balance to me. But you can get another idea of how that looks without water on it. So I think any one of these would work. We just have to look and see, whoops, what did I do? We just have to look and see how we feel about the way things are showing. And you can see how they're kind of dirty and messy. And it's like, well, if I print this huge, do I want the dirt and the mess? And that's shallow depth of field helps a lot. But see, when we zoom in here, it's in focus, but it's kind of ugly. How do we want to tackle this? All right, so let's look through. This is what the seed pod looks like. Really elegant. And this is what the flower looks like more from the top. And you can see why a person looks at it and kind of goes, I don't know what to do with this. It's almost like little cavities. It reminds me of, I don't know what it reminds me of, but it's not very floral-like. It's not really feminine. It doesn't look the best to me straight on. There's so many more visually interesting parts of this flower. So anyway, I went through, and here's a little pullback. I wanted to show you again. Here is the pullback of the egress. I was tucked down there. There's my new peonies that I planted. Right there is where I was tucked down to stairs. Ooh, that one was nice. I like this, but I don't like the logs. I feel like the logs are not really helping the situation, but I think it's a beautiful specimen. So I'll hit a 5 on it just to keep track of it. All right, so how would I go about editing these? How could I edit? Well, I started to edit this one. And I think what I'm going to do is duplicate it to show you what I did. And what that does is it just duplicates the file, and then I can reset it to the original. All right, so the first thing you probably saw was that I cleaned it up a little bit. When you're working in nature, especially light colored florals, dirt is just a problem. You know, you just have to deal with it. And you don't have to be completely obsessed with it, but I want it to feel neat and tidy, especially if I print it big. I don't know if I like this little piece of dirt there. I'm going to do that one again. Kind of catch the whole thing. Move it over just a hair. I don't want it to make it go away altogether because that isn't really realistic. And now I want to deal with the color. Okay, so I'm going to go into color. I'm going to take the purple all the way to pink and the magenta all the way to pink. That just changes the color for me. It makes it a lot more warm, and I like that. They looked like that to my eye when I was shooting them. They are a bit purple, I guess, but I like them a little bit more on the pink side. All right, now what can I do to change the lighting a little bit? Well, I think what I want to do is make a band of light sort of hitting it here. So I'm going to use the graduated filter or linear gradient. And I'm going to darken some of it. Just kind of directing the light. I want it to be very soft. I don't want it to be a hard transition. So I'm going to keep pulling this like that. And then pull it up from the bottom as well. Like that. And what that does is it leaves this band. I can go in with a radial. Let's make it long and skinny. Pull it around. And up the exposure just a hair. To be like a little spotlight on it. And that's pretty close to where I want to be. I like it. I might use a soft light layer in Photoshop, which I won't bore you with here, but that's just taking it over to Photoshop and adding any layer, any adjustment layer, and choosing the soft light blend mode and taking it down to 30% or so. I like to do that, but I don't think I'm going to do it here just for time's sake. Let's see, what can we add? Maybe a little bit of exposure, a little bit of texture, and make it a bit bigger. Kind of open up that center a bit more. And let's see, we can go into the saturation. Let's go to vibrance. Maybe kick up the vibrance a little bit. And then the greenery, I'm never a fan of yellow greens. So I'm going to go into the yellow, pull the yellow out a little bit, lower the luminance a little bit, and maybe lower the luminance of the green, cool those off just a hair. And I think that's good. I like that one. I like it. I think that kind of shows off the many facets of it without looking weird. It isn't showing many of the back petals here. That can maybe be featured in another image. But for time's sake, I'm going to just stop it here, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye-bye.